Hello everyone. Today we'll be talking about React Router. Does anyone know what React Router is? Nope. So it's basically linking all of your components together. However, you can render whichever link you want to click on. So let me show an example. So here I have an example of a React web application. So there are 3 links, one for about me, articles, and contact. So if I click on any of them, it will immediately go straight to this page without having to refresh. I mean, I can refresh myself, but I do not have to. So this is called a single page application. So essentially, I can basically render all the components at once. However, I can render whichever, like I said, I can render whichever component. So, do you know what's the main library for it? The main library for routing. React is, pardon? Yes, React Router, but do you know the library name? Yep. So it's called React Router DOM. So because React Router DOM is not a built-in library, so you have to install it separately. So if I show you, so before if you want to use it, you have to pass npm or yarn npm install React Router DOM. No. The reason why is because React itself is not a framework, but it's a library. So therefore, it doesn't come with a built-in router.
You need to add.
Exactly, yeah. So unlike Angular and Vue, they are frameworks. However, React is a library, not a framework. So that's done. So if I go to my package, here it is. It's installed. Okay. Right, so here I have the app component. So in order to use routing, I want to import it. So I want to import a component called browser router. So I also want to introduce route. I'll explain the curly brackets later. For now, I just want to introduce this to you first. And then I want to import it from React Router DOM. Now, normally, because browser router is quite a long name, you can always rename it if you want. So normally we just call it router. So what's browser router? It's essentially a routing component. So it just says it's like a parent component for root. So, and for root, it's basically a component to render each of the component that you have. So for example, for home, for about, etc. So I want to allocate router to the beginning of before this div. So you always have to do it. You always have to do after return and before this. So let me type in router. Now, so that's done. Now I can simply just render home basically. Ooh, and let me import home first. Components home. I can do that, so welcome to home page, but I do not want this to appear in every page. So therefore, it's not suitable in this situation. So what other way I can do because I don't want this to be in every page, I will have to use root. Now, so for this root component, you can use a property called path. So path is essentially the URL that you provide to this component. So because I want home to be my main page, the default page, I want to provide it a /, meaning it's the root of this web application. And then afterwards, I want to provide another property for this component, which is called component, which is where you render the home component. So whenever I type in, so every time I go to this web application, this will come up immediately. So that's the home page. Anyone got any questions so far? Does it make sense? Yeah? Cool.
Just a quick one.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically you're saying the reason we use our router because in this way we can only, when we render the home page, it will be the first page. Without it, it will be...
So if I type in, I don't know, whatever. Ooh. So remember, so yeah. So let me show you another example. So let me go to let me show you. Let me render about page. So let me do the same thing, and let me import it. So after the /, I want to give it. I want to say about. Okay. Now let me show you this. Do you think the only the about page will appear, or home? Yeah. Ooh. What's going on here? Oh, I misspelled components. Do you know what happened? What's going on here? Sorry? Yeah, exactly. So basically, for this /, React still recognizes this / as home. So for this part, it will also think that you're trying to render home and about. So what's the solution to fix this? I can't hear you. Nope. Nope. Anyone? Pardon? Yeah, well done, Sumi. Well done. Sumi just said you have to use the exact path. So you know where should I add it, Sumi? Which, line 15 or line 16? Yeah, first one. Exactly. So if I put in exact, I'm instructing React to only show the home page as /. So therefore, React will ignore this / for about because it knows that / means home. So if I go to the home page, which is that, see, that's fine. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. Right, I want to import another component, which is called training. So if you can, let me show you this one very quickly. Component, if I can spell. Component training. Right, let's do this. And it's called training. Right, guys, I've got a question. Why is there curly brackets for these two components? So why do I have to use curly brackets if I want to import more than one component?
Because are they all elements of the route?
No.
When you import the two titles there.
Exactly. So if I'm importing more than one, I'll have to use curly brackets. So if I show you, so here's training. So I have a few headings, 4 headings. So welcome to training page, React, CSS, JavaScript, blah, blah, blah. So if I want to add another function to it, another component, so basically there's an error. So if I call this training 2, and let's just say I want to say, Coduri is not providing the training for React, but for Angular, for example, just an example. So right now it says it's an error. So it's not defined. So in order to export 2 components, I can't use the default. I will have to surround them with curly braces. And to import it, I will also have to use curly braces as well. So if I go to the training page, and it's React, CSS, JavaScript. So if I don't want training 1, I want training 2, I can simply just change the component name to 2. Any questions so far regarding to that? Yeah? Cool. Right. Question. Other than component property, how will I be able to render it? Other than component property, is there another way to render it? So it's a thing called render. So render means that you can do whatever you want. So for example, I want to pass a callback function. Let's just say, yeah, I'm going to use the about component. Do you remember last week we were talking about props? I can essentially pass in data within this component, within the root component. So do you guys remember how to pass in the property? No. Within the property, within the app component, from the parent to the child. Do you guys remember? So for example, I want to pass in a property of message. I can simply just do this. Message like, hello world. Yep, so that's taking passing data within root. So if I go to the about page, do you guys remember how to communicate from the parent to the child? So I want to basically gain access to the JSX. So I want to gain access to, say for example, so I want H2, I want hello world to be here. Do you guys remember? Do you remember props? Like Sumi, you mentioned earlier, props? Yeah, how do I do it? Before that? Yeah, so shall I call it props? Doesn't matter, you can call it whatever you want. So props. So if I console.log it will tell me what's inside this object, so hello world. Yeah? So, what did you say again? Props. So, curly brackets, so props dot what? Message. Yeah, message, right? Hello world. Alright, any questions so far? Does it make sense? So you can render, you can do whatever you want to it. Using render. Yeah? Cool. Alright, let's move on. Right, now, so far, I can play around with this web application. So I can basically go to different pages using the address bar. So home page, I can do this. Go to about page, I can do that. Go to training, I can do this. What's missing?
The link between them.
Sorry?
The link between them.
You mean the navbar?
Yeah.
Yeah, navbar, yeah. So I'm missing a navbar. So let me render the navbar, but before we do that, if I show you the navbar component, so with React, you have to use some, so these are the anchor tags and href. So with React, you will have to use their built-in library for React router DOM. So do you know what they are? So I want to replace this a tag with something else according to the React router DOM library. It's called link. Yeah. So if I import it, it's called link from React router DOM. So let me replace these with. Ooh. Right. So I'm gonna let me start with the first one actually. So I'll give it a link. Now with href, I don't want to use href. I want to use another. I use a different one, which is called prop. Not prop. Sorry, a two prop. So do you remember the link to home? Pardon?
Was it the exact path or just slash?
Yeah, you can use exact path, but I'll show you that in a minute. So let's focus on this bit. It's /, isn't it? Yep. Now, if I go back to the app, I now want to import Navbar. Actually, you know what? Let me be lazy. Yeah. Navbar. Now, where shall I put it, the navbar? Because I don't really need to use a root, do I? Because I want it to appear in every page. So where shall I put it? Below home? Above home? Above app? The classing app? Pardon? Above home? No, above home. Yeah. It's because you want it in every page, don't you? So if I type in navbar here, so I've got home. So it will link me to home page. Now let's finish the rest. Now what's next? The about page. So let me do that. So if I just type in link to, and then about, and the next one. Training. So we have 3 working links. Now.
So you created 3 links.
Yep.
Wrapped in the router.
Yep.
And each of the links have the same names as the file paths.
Same name.
As these file paths, but they're 2 different components. One is a router component with all the roots, and one is a link component with all the links.
Right, yeah, so with the link component, you need, so do you know how to create a navbar? Like, yeah, so normally use anchor tag and href, but in React, you have to use link in order to provide a link to another page.
But these are 2 separate pages, right?
2 separate pages, exactly, yeah. Okay?
And this is the navbar page with all the links.
Yep.
And that's just the routing page with all the roots.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, cool. So you always have to, you always have to start with the router and root in order to make, before you start with the navigator. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions so far? Cool. Right. I have one problem. Whenever I click on the link, I want this background to stay. I want it to stay. I don't know why it doesn't work. So whenever I hover over it, yeah, obviously the background appears, but I want it to be active. So there's a special component called navlink. So with navlink, whenever you click on a link, it will stay. So if I show you, see, it stays. Right, one problem. Why the background color is not leaving? Why is it not disappearing? You did mention this to me. You did. What's the problem with this? What's the problem with this component? The property 2.
The exact one.
Exactly. So very similar. Exactly, yeah. Very similar to root, but with the link navlink, you have to provide exact. That way, React will recognize this as home page and will disregard this bit. Yeah? Oh, by the way, so obviously this is not automatic with the CSS, I did it myself. So here, I provided a background of green and a color white, okay? So as soon as I pass down navlink, it will give a class name of active automatically. Yeah?
Did you have a order as well?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Okay?
Yeah, forward and active.
Yeah? Cool. Shall I move on? Cool. Right. With navlink, you can also provide another property called active class name. So basically, you can give it a class name if you want. So let's call it active for about, or yeah, about whatever. And I can adjust it in CSS. So I just did it earlier on. So I gave it a background color of yellow. So if I click on about, it will adjust itself. So that's another property you can play around with. Also, I can do inline styling as well in navlink. So I can do active style, and I can provide a background color of, give me a color, Sumi.
Blue.
Blue, yeah? Blue. See? So you know, it's not essential with me, it's just another thing you can play around with. Okay, does it make sense, guys? Cool. Right, next thing. So no more questions, right? So far everything's good? Cool? Right. At the moment, so like I said, everything's fine, all the links are fine. So what happens if I misspell
What if you, for instance, want the links centered?
What do you mean centered?
I mean, in the center of the page. So about is in the middle, home goes to the left.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't understand your question.
It's about on the right hand side, all of them.
Oh, you want it to be left hand side?
Just to see.
Oh, CSS, yeah, of course. So I use flex.
Okay.
So do you remember how to display it from left to right? So I'm displaying the navbar from right to left, which is flex end. Well done, Simi. Well done. There you go.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, all good?
Yep.
Cool. Right, yeah, I might just stick with yeah, I might stick with it, it's fine. Not a big deal. Right. Next thing. Right, so what if I type, so I'm on the home page or about page, whatever. What if I misspell about? What will happen? It'll give me a blank page. So what's this? So what's going on here? I misspell something and it's blank, right? So would you be confused if it's blank? should I provide a message at least saying, you know, page not found exactly? So I created a not found component, page not found. Right. How should I do it? Z? So let me import not found first. So not found. Yeah, I know, I should always do this. Not found. Alright, how should I do this, see? Root, yep. Do I need path? Not exactly, right? Do you know why?
Yeah, because it's going to repeat every time.
Exactly, right, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I just need to render the component like this. Not found. Yep, I got it. So wherever if I type in something wrong, it would appear. However, if I go back to the home page, or about or training, it sticks to it below. Does anyone know how to fix this problem? Jake just mentioned switch. So it's another component from the React router DOM library. So if I import another component called switch, where should I locate it, Jake? So above navbar, below navbar, in the middle, above not found. Yeah, that's it. So if I put it here, exactly. So switch will essentially make sure that each and every component, root, are rendered to its component. So it will make sure that each of the URL are matched. So with homepage, it has to match with this component, with about, has to match with this component, and so on. So if none of them matches, it will immediately go back to not found. Does it make sense? Cool.
So switch gives you a default?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So like I said, it will make sure that each and every component are rendered correctly.
It's mapped to the exact component somehow.
Can't hear you.
It's somehow mapped to the correct.
Match, yeah. You'll make sure it matches the URL, basically. Okay. Right. I want to tell you another property, another interesting property for root. It's called. Ooh, something wrong. Sorry. No, not sorry. So not property. Sorry. It's called redirect. Another component called redirect. So let's just say I want to render it here. So I want to render. And I want to use a component called redirect. Provide a comma here. So what I'm essentially doing is that what if the page for training is not working? One, let's just say it's under maintenance. So if there's something wrong with the page, then we have to put it down and fix it. So redirect is the right solution. So I want to show this message under maintenance. So let me import it first. Maintenance. Did I spell it right? Yep. So before I do that, I will also have to provide a root for it. Pardon? Components. So So for example, I want it to redirect to components. Sorry, not components, to maintenance. So if I click on training, it will redirect me to under maintenance. And obviously the active thing will disappear because it's no longer under training, but in under maintenance. In maintenance.
That's good.
Yeah? Any more questions? All right. So this is a very short session. So I just want to know if everyone wants me to recap again. Yeah?
Sure.
Sure, okay. So, does anyone know what browser router is? So browser router is essentially, again, it's the root routine component in order to make sure all of the URL are in sync. So with root, with switch and all that. And root is the child component for rendering each of these components individually. Switch will make sure that each and every root are matched. Well, basically, it will basically search for, it will make sure the URL matches this component. If it doesn't, it will go all the way down to not found. Yep. And that's. So what will happen if I change this, if I get rid of exact? Exactly. So I always have to provide an exact keyword. Yeah. And if I want to pass data to a component, I always have to use render prop, pass in a callback function, and then pass in the component's name. So if I pass in message hello world, I can also pass in another one. So message 2, for example. Or I don't know, hi this time. So if I want to pass in the props message, I'll do this. Curly brackets, props.message2. And hopefully it will provide me hi. It does. Right, with Navbar. So, I mean, you can always use the link component, but I tend to use navlink because of the active styling. But yeah, so completely optional. You can use link or navlink, doesn't matter. Based on personal preference. Yeah? Any more questions before I end it? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Sure. Right, you want me to start again or?
How Navlink is different from the router? Because they kind of have the same.
Because when you want to, so you always have to start with root if you want to let React know that I have another page that I want to render. So I want to connect them all. I always have to start with root, but with the navbar, I always have to use. I want to provide the links. So essentially saying, I can't exactly put in root here. It just won't work. It will only work in app.js. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any more questions before I end it? All right, cool. Thank you, guys.